What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I'm talking about one that I was cautiously optimistic about, but also kind of wondering why it was going to exist. I'm talking about a brand new 2023 release that was just kind of sprung on us about a month ago. We suddenly got a trailer and heard a release date and went, I don't really know what the point of this is or if I want to see it or not, but being a fan of the overall series, I decided to check it out. Please forgive the fact that I'm recording this review right after my Steeler review that I just uploaded. You might probably see this review 4 days later, but I just talked for 25 minutes about the Steelers, so my voice is a little straggly, but I had to come on and bring you guys the review for a prequel to a remake. I'm talking about 2023's Pet Semetary Bloodlines. So this is meant to be a prequel to the remake that came out a few years ago. Essentially, it serves as a prequel to either one, really. It could be a prequel to the original as well. I love the original movie as an all-time favorite of mine, one of Stephen King's best adaptations, but I also really enjoyed the remake, a little less than the original, but I like the remake as well. So this movie, Pet Semetary Bloodlines, serves as a prequel that tells you the story of Judd Crandall and kind of how the whole Pet Semetary thing started, hence the term Bloodlines, which is an overused prequel title. I don't love the title. It's kind of basic. But yeah, this came out on Paramount Plus right now. I just hit streaming on Friday, 2 days ago as I record this. So I'll bring you guys a spoiler-free review. No spoilers here. I will talk about the plot and stuff around the spoilers. So you guys can go watch it if you get the chance. This one is written by Lindsay Anderson Beer and Jeff Bueller, based on characters by Stephen King, obviously, and directed by Lindsay Anderson Beer. Lindsay Anderson Beer has only directed, I think, two things before, two TV series. This is her feature film directing debut, I believe, and definitely her debut in horror. Jeff Bueller has written a bunch of stuff. He wrote the story for the Pet Semetary remake, as well as a short film that was the details to Timmy Baterman, called The Tim Baterman Story, basically. But this prequel, basically, is the story of a young Judd Crandall growing up in the town of Ludlow with his family and his girlfriend, trying to leave the town and coming to see the start of what happens when you bury things you shouldn't bury, and kind of talking about the Baterman story that he tells in the first Pet Semetary and fleshing out that family and that story and how Pet Semetary first started and why he remained in this town. This film stars Jackson White as a young Judd Crandall, Natalie Allen Lind as Norma, and Jack Mulhern as Timmy Baterman, the character we're talking about here in this prequel. First things first, origin story, I gave this a plus. I enjoyed that they went back and kind of fleshed out the origin story of Baterman without really ruining what was already established. We really only got much of his story. I kind of forget what they mentioned in the remake, but in the original, I know Judd tells the new family about kind of Baterman and kind of how this started, and it may change a few small details, but I think overall this movie stayed pretty loyal to the story of Baterman. Again, I didn't go back and rewatch the other movies before this one, so I'm kind of a little foggy on it, but they basically take the 1 minute monologue that Judd gives in the original movie and make it into a full story, and I think they are pretty accurate to that. You get a lot of origins here. And another positive of mine is callbacks. So I'll put those two positives together, origin story and callbacks. You see a lot of things from the original. They talk in the first movie about the fire and kind of how Baterman changed coming back from the war. You see that slow change in Baterman. You see Baterman and his friends Judd and their other friend, how they interact with each other, how there's kind of a blackness behind Baterman's eyes. You see kind of his slow burn change in himself, and you can't really tell if it's coming back from the war, seeing some negative things, having PTSD, or if he's been buried. By David Duchovny. David Duchovny plays Baterman's father in this. There are a couple of older actors that are coming back for this movie that are some kind of nice accentuation pieces to the young core cast we have here. But yes, they call back to the Baterman story. They call back to how the masks are made, and they give us an origin story on what the burial ground is and kind of what it means. Why you would try to bury something there, why you would make the mask, why you would relate to animals, why you would try and have that ground be peaceful, and how it kind of got sour, as Judd Crandall talks about in the original movie. Another big positive here is cinematography. I like the way this is shot. Not only do they have some really nice overarching shots, where you have drones, you have wide shots, you have a really nice set of shots into the pet cemetery itself, that sour ground. You get those overarching shots of the kids in the animal mask, you get the gravestones, you get kind of the wide fields the pet cemetery is known for, but you also get some unique shots. You get some, they use it for moments of tension. You see characters popping up behind you. You see three-dimensional shots where there's something in the foreground and something in the background. They use unique shots and unique locales and unique kind of props to make you scared at different moments. I like the way they use the camera in this. Location goes along with that. Again, we talk about the necessity for having a rural neighborhood that has these big wide fields and these big long shots of the walk up to the cemetery and stuff. So you're getting a very peaceful kind of rural town of Ludlow that is isolated, even though it is massive. It is a regular neighborhood in every person's neighborhood that can be in any town, but it's isolated because once stuff starts happening, there's really nowhere to go. So location was a big point of emphasis on this, and they did a good job with it. Again, tension goes back to not only are you using some good camera shots to have depth of field and stuff like that, but also there's a lot of moments when characters are kind of just staring at you and you're waiting for something to happen. They use the quietness of what happens when you come back from the dead, and you know they're going to strike, but you just don't exactly know when or where they're going to strike. So they use that tension pretty well. Pacing I have here is a positive and a negative. The pacing overall I think is pretty good. You use the first half of the film to kind of set up the characters and their relationships and kind of the family dynamics of what the stakes are. When you lose somebody, why you would try to bring someone back, what it means when you bring someone back, what the family histories are. They spend some time going into the different families' histories and what their overarching impact to the future films are. And I like that. But there also are some moments, and I apologize as my heat goes off. It's a little cold here on the fall day in October here in Pittsburgh, but my heat's going off back there, so I apologize. But overall, I liked the pacing, but I do think that it lulls a little bit kind of in the middle, and then when you get to the final sequence, there's a little bit of stuff that you don't need necessarily in there. Some of the killer trying to catch the main people trying to track down the killer. They do this cat and mouse thing that it goes a little bit long. It's a little darkly shot, dimly lit, and it goes a little long, so the pacing gets a little bit weak there. So second and third act of the film, there are moments that it lags, but I think overall they did a nice job with it, trying to give us time to spend with the characters that we come to know later on and give us real stakes. Family dynamics are a big part of this movie, and I think that's one of the shining points of it. It runs for 1 hour and 27, and I think that's a pretty good length for this prequel overall. Negative I want to give to flashback / tone shift. In the third act of the film, it does start to run a little long in the tooth. While I love the first act and I love parts of the second act, and even the conclusion feels kind of satisfying to some extent, I do think that they go into a flashback sequence where they give you the first ever time that these things are happening, kind of the settlers from 100 years ago. They kind of go into that, and it feels a little bit like a jarring tone shift. It has its place, and there's a good reason for why they go into the flashback, and it does give the characters reasons to feel remorseful later on, but I think the flashback feels a little bit tonally weird. And then when you get into the very kind of last 20 minutes, we spend some time kind of underground, so to speak. We're in a bit of a tunnel where the movie kind of feels more like The Descent instead of Pet Semetary, and it makes sense as to why it's underground, because the underground is what causes the bodies to turn sour and the air to turn bad and bad things to happen. But you spend a lot of time underground, and so you're kind of just rounding corners waiting for stuff to happen while things feel kind of dark. So in that third act, between the flashback and the underground stuff, the tone seems to shift and the movie feels a little bit different in a negative way. But overall, I want to say I think I like the ending a lot. The very ending, kind of gives you a satisfying reason for how the characters end up where they end up going into the first film. So when you get from the prequel into the current day stuff that we know and love, you get a few nice callbacks and you get a few reasons for why the characters end up where we know them to end up. So I like the ending overall, even though the last act kind of falls apart in some ways. I like how the overall ending is resolved for our characters that we care about. So while this film wasn't necessary to be made, while there was no real need aside from a cash grab to have this movie, I do like the callbacks. I do like a lot of the execution. I do think 2/3 of the movie has really good pacing. I like the acting. I like some of the casting choices. Our younger actors do a good job, while our more experienced actors provide some nice cameos. So this is not going to be earth-shattering. It's not going to be super necessary, but I do think if you like the original movie and the remake, or you like one or the other, I think you might find this kind of fun, because you get some of the sometimes dead is better and some of the characters we love. You get some of their origin stories, and it doesn't feel like those origin stories are ruined. So while this is not necessary essential viewing, it's a decent enough film. It's a quick film. It's an hour and a half. It's available on Paramount Plus. It only runs an hour and 27. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think for me, I think it's like my 9th favorite film, 8th or 9th on my top 10 horror this year. So again, it's not going to be amazing for you, but I think for a prequel that's going straight to streaming, it's better than I expected it to be. And I think it's better than a lot of you guys will expect it as well. So 6 out of 10 for me. Just better than average. What did you guys think if you've seen it? If you've not seen it, go to Paramount Plus, check it out, and come back and comment on this video. Please talk to me in the comments. What did you think of the original, the remake, and now this prequel? And do you think there's room for any more, or there was reason to have this in the first place? Tell me in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys with more film reviews coming up soon. Take care. Sometimes, dead is better. Had to say it.